Welcome to War Games on Toast, all of you lovely people. I am once again back talking about the latest edition of Warcry, and today I am talking about the latest release Warcry has seen as of recording, The Blacktalons. But before we get into all of that, please consider hitting the like, comment, and subscribe button as it helps me fight against that dastardly YouTube algorithmic demon. And if you want to help in a more tangible way, then please consider pledging to my Patreon or YouTube members for as little as £1 a month, and that'll help me fund future endeavours and put you in a chance to win one of the many warband giveaways we'll be holding throughout the year. And of course, special thanks to the bona fide algorithmic demon slayer herself, Brioche, for bankrolling these videos. But with all of that out of the way, let's get on with the show.
And now for something completely different.
The Blacktalons have arrived. This past month or so has been absolutely bonkers for Warcry content, with the surprise release of the Blacktalons making this the 5th warband to be released in as many weeks. The Blacktalons seem like another attempt to make bespoke Stormcast Eternals seem cool, and as a first impression, they have absolutely succeeded. But first, full disclosure, I have not played the Blacktalons yet because they are not yet out. So this is not a usual how to play, this is more of an initial first look and glance at the Blacktalons, and I'll be using my gut and experience to give you a rundown on how I think these guys will fare on the battlefield. So my initial thoughts when looking at the Blacktalons are that they have pretty strong abilities. You don't get many, as in you only get 4 for the whole warband, but the 4 that are here range from great to, yeah, that's kind of alright, I guess. And you have just about everything you need to make an elite warband tick here. And that means you have ways of getting bonus actions and ways to stay alive, which is all good stuff. Not only that, but Neve is really good. She's expensive at 285 points, but for that, you're getting a blender of a character. We are talking 6524 with a base movement of 7. She can get around, she can blend, and she really fills this fast-moving bombshell. If you can get her moving without burning actions, which, as we mentioned before, is not hard, you can do incredible work with this lass. But it's not just Neve who is good here. Everyone in this warband has fairly efficient stats, with Neve and Rostis, more on him in a bit, being the real standouts. This means you're getting a lot of bang for your buck here, which is really nice to see. They haven't skimped on the good stuff at all. Now, that being said, the elf in this warband kind of sucks in comparison to everyone else. They bring a very squishy frame and an admittedly pretty strong ranged attack to a warband that doesn't need another ranged attack and doesn't want to have any weak links. This guy's a bit of a dud. And of course, being elite, this has natural drawbacks. The biggest being you are forced to rely on your dice more than most other warbands. Warbands with a lot of models don't necessarily need to rely on dice to win games. They can win just by being in the right place at the right time with enough models and winning through the brain game. Elite warbands just can't. They need to kill things to compete in objective games, and if they can't, they flat out lose. Not to mention, they need to reclaim some semblance of activation advantage and stymie that flow of chip damage. And finally, being elite and order, I couldn't come up with that many allies that really fit here. There are some standouts, but for the most part, you don't have much wiggle room, and the selection is quite thin. Now, let's jump into their reactions and their stats, starting with their reaction called Shield of Azir. This reaction is the one you want to see. Your warband has a lot of wounds and very high toughness across the board, but crits care for neither. And if you get hit enough times, you will go down to some lucky 6s. This stops that. Not only that, Neve herself benefits from this even more, negating 3 crits in the right situation. Now, you are elite though, so burning actions to do this is a difficult decision. Generally, you don't want to waste actions reacting as an elite Stormcast warband, but being alive is far better than being dead. Always remember you have this, and always be prepared to pop it and stick around when you need to. Very, very powerful, just very, very situational. Now, the Blacktalons don't have any universally available abilities, so we are just going to go and move on to their units. And we are going to start with Neve Blacktalon, who is the star of the show. This lass is an absolute beast. Her movement is amazing. Her defensive stats are very respectable. Her offensive stats are fantastic. Her ranged attack is pretty alright, all things considered. Neve is the person you want in combat, and you should be throwing resources at her to get her there as soon as possible. Movement 7 is outstanding for an assassin that is this tough. If she can get into combat, which shouldn't be too hard, she is getting between 6 and 12 attacks with a fantastic profile. Pop Onslaught, and you are looking at 7 to 14 attacks, which will put a dent in most things. We are looking at an average of 10 wounds per action spent on swinging her axes, and which means you're getting 20 if you can attack twice, which is enough to kill most things. This only gets higher with blessings, and I advise running +1 crit to give her some extra punch on her attacks on the cheap. And don't get me started with Rampage. That is some nasty, nasty stuff going on there. Not only that, she also gets her own quad, which is just beautiful to ponder. Wind Rider lets Neve teleport after she kills something. The better the quad, the closer you can be to enemies when you teleport in. This has a few uses. Firstly, hit and run. Neve runs up, she murders a model or two, then she teleports to safety. Easy, effective, and safe. Secondly, you can use this to murder someone and then teleport to another target and then murder them. This is a teleport so you can go wherever you want, and it's awesome. You can do a lot with this, but it is a quad, making it very expensive, and it has an activation clause, which is you have to kill something. So bear that in mind, this can be a little bit of a gamble. Now, I love Neve Blacktalon, but Rostus has stolen my heart. This guy is just efficient, and I love him. For 200 points, you get Toughness 6, 25 wounds, and Movement 4. We are talking a Stormcast Eternal Paladin, like an Annihilator Prime, but with more movement. Then you have his attack profile, which is 4-6-3-6, which is like an Annihilator Prime, but also with more crit. This guy hits like a truck, and he doesn't want to die. He is stupidly good, and very effective at murdering whatever gets in his way. He also has access to the very powerful double Storm of Justice. This lets him bestow bonus move or bonus attack actions to any visible Blacktalon fighter. This is very good on Neve, obviously, but it can be used on any Blacktalon, and they will all make great use of it. Don't forget, it can be used to give attack actions too, not just move actions. You can very cheaply use this on someone to give them more damage output. Very nice if your guys are already stuck in combat. I love Rostus on paper, and I don't see myself dropping this guy for much of anything. He's very, very good.
Groovy.
Now, Shakana Goldblade is the ranged support, which might raise alarm bells as most ranged units in Warcry are kind of crap. And at first glance, Shakana looks absolutely god-awful. Her melee attack is kind of crap. Her ranged attack is 4-3-1-2, which is awful. And sure, she has some good defenses, like toughness 5 and 25 wounds, but she looks terrible for a 180 point model. I mean, we've just seen Rostus, so Shakana looks even worse by comparison. But I love Shakana because of her ability, Headshot. It's a triple, so it's very expensive, but it adds flat ability value damage to both hits and crits. Best case scenario, you have a 666. Your damage is now 4 shots. Strength 3, 7, 8 damage.
Good. Bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
That is a crazy amount of punch, and with 4 shots, the odds of hitting even once are very high. Hit twice, you're killing something. Get lucky, and things get comically good. She is a threat that projects her threat like mad. She can reach out and delete things, and that's something this warband does struggle with, since only Neve has the reliable speed to project threat effectively. Keep Shakana back and snipe away. She's very good at it if you have the dice to keep her supported. Sadly, I can't stand Lurai. This elf, like most elves and basically all Idoneth Deepkin, just sucks. She's terrible. Her defensive stats are bad. Her offensive stats are okay at range, but awful in melee. Her ability is good, but kind of underwhelming. It can make her guys more survivable, but I am way more interested in investing in ways to kill things. She's well priced for what she brings. I just don't think she brings anywhere near enough. If you were to take her, give her +1 strength on her range attack or +1 toughness, and she'll have a good time up until someone kills her, probably.
You make me sick!
Now, Hendrik the Silver Wolf sounds cool, and that is because he is kinda cool. He's not as killy as Rostis or Neve, but he is very cheap compared to them both, and any other Blacktalon in this list. He is still tanky as all heck with toughness 5 and 25 wounds, and his melee profile is very nice. He comes with 2 forms of 1-inch range attacks, and that is a 4-4-2 form and a 3-5-2-5. This lets him deal with chaff and more elite foes, and he does okay against them both. He's nothing to write home about, but he is cool. His model is nice, and he has a place, especially when you consider he has Rostis's double, Storm of Justice, making him an excellent support piece that can get Neve or Rostis around the board and killing more effectively. A really solid pick and well worth the investment. Now, Order is a very big subfaction, so a lot of allies are candidates, but only 2 really sprung to mind when I was initially theory crafting, so I'm going to keep this section short and discuss the 2 that sprung to mind. The first being Calthea Zandaya of the Truthseekers. Calthea Zandaya is awesome. She's a support piece and an expensive one at that. Her ability to use Coordinated Strike is outstanding, and it is the reason you take her. However, at 210 points, she is really hard to fit in, to the point I don't think you can without making some pretty serious sacrifices. The obvious cut would be to lose something like Rostis for her, and that might be the right play here. I don't like the thought of cutting a model as powerful as Rostis, but experiment with her and see if she works. She's cool, she's always good. She might not be the right choice for the Blacktalons, however. Now, I don't hide the fact I don't like the Questa Soulsworn. As a warband, I think they just kind of suck as a dedicated bespoke. However, as allies, the Soulsworn are very handy because they have some very cool abilities that help them support other warbands. Of all the Soulsworn, I really like the Soulsworn Knight Relictor, and the reason for this is because he has a very solid ranged attack, he's good in melee, he's much tougher than the comparatively cost Lurai. He also has access to some very powerful abilities. He has a quad that lets you teleport allies around, he has an ability to move or attack on kill, and more importantly, he has access to Thundering Strides, a double that lets him give bonus move actions to allies within 6 inches. Sure, he can't bestow attack actions like Rostis and Hendrik, but this ability is always 6 inches and not bound to ability dice value, so he brings a bit more reliability to your movement game and lets you have a movement enhancing piece in every single deployment. To me, this guy is the obvious replacement for Lurai, and he fits in both thematically and visually, which is always a nice touch. On to an example list. I feel the Blacktalons are very self-contained and don't need much to work. The list that sprung to mind when pondering the Blacktalons was very simple, and it was just this: Neve Blacktalon with +1 crit, Rostis Oxenhammer, Chakana Goldenblade, Hendrik the Silver Wolf, and the Soulsworn Knight Relictor. This comes to a whopping 995 points and has everything you could possibly need. You have 3 ways to bestow bonus movement, 2 ways to give out bonus attacks, and 2 forms of teleportation. Everyone has 20 plus wounds and toughness 5 and above. You hit hard, you aren't slow by any means, and you project threat effectively thanks to Neve's movement and Shakana's very powerful range potential. If you are getting started with Blacktalons, this is the list I would go with and then experiment from there. This is super simple to get going and it looks very fun on the tabletop. A alternative would be to drop the +1 crit off Neve, remove Rostis, and then throw in Calthea Zandaya, and that would give you way more support, but I think that might impact your damage potential a little bit too much. And that's it. That's the end of this first impression. The Blacktalons have done the impossible for me, and that makes Stormcast interesting. 4 out of the 5 models here are really cool on the tabletop, and visually, all 5 are awesome. This is a great warband, and I am very happy to see Games Workshop nail these elite bespokes. I mean, between these guys and the Gorge Armor Pack, we are seeing some really cool, hard-hitting, and effective elite warbands, and I love it. But that's the end of this video. If you made it this far, you are an absolute legend. Please remember to support your local bakery and give your gold-clad toast a like, a comment, and subscribe. And if you can, please consider subscribing to my YouTube members or Patreon to help fund future endeavors and Warcry content. Until then, let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Blacktalons. Do you have any sneaky tricks or tips that you can share with the rest of the community? If so, let us know so we can all bask in our shared communal knowledge. And until next time, lads, ladies, and everybody in between and beyond, I'll catch you in the next video. Ta-ra.
That'll do. That'll do.